Hello, I'm John Foster, and I'm a medical doctor who does Social Security disability exams. And today I'm going to be talking mainly to people who are scheduled to have a Social Security Consultative Examination. This past week I did 16 consultative examinations in one day, and I saw the usual problems and some new ones that I commonly see when I do these exams. As usual, everything I say reflects my own opinions based on my own experience and study, and not the opinions of the Social Security Administration or any other medical body. Now, if you've watched any other of my videos, some of these will be familiar, and the first one is know where the exam is being held. A consultative examination is almost never held at your regular doctor's office that you're familiar with. It likely will be held in an office you've never been to before. I would go so far as to try and find that office on a day before your consultative examination, and do that during the weekday during regular office hours. So if you can't find the office, you can call somebody and get directions. I had one patient this past week who came in with smoke shooting out of their ears because they were so angry because they couldn't find the office. Folks, it's not my job to get you to the office. That's your job. Make sure you know where the exam is being held and that you can find it. The next issue is arrive early. Things like traffic jams happen. When I do these exams, I'm on a tight schedule, and if somebody's late, it can throw the whole day off, especially if it's the first patient of the day. That can give me a whole day full of people complaining that I'm late because I got a late start because the first patient of the day showed up late. I would suggest you show up at least 15 minutes early, and half an hour early is better. The third thing that I saw is just show up. Your disability application will not be approved if Social Security schedules you for a consultative examination and you don't show up. I had 20 patients scheduled and 16 of them showed up. There were 4 no-shows. Even if you think your chances are slim of being approved, your chances plummet to 0 if you don't show up for the exam. Social Security sends me some medical records on each patient that I review before the day I do the consultative examinations, and I like to try and see if I can determine how badly off the patient is and whether they're truly disabled from those medical records. It's not 100%, but I'm fairly good at it. One of the patients who didn't show seemed to me from their medical records to be quite badly off, and I thought their application would almost certainly be approved. But like I said, their application will not be approved because they didn't show up. The next thing is to focus on those medical problems that cause difficulty with working. Don't focus on the problems that have no impact on your ability to work. When you applied for disability, you filled out a long Social Security questionnaire. In 3363, Section 3, Social Security asked you to list the medical conditions, list all of the physical and mental conditions, including emotional or learning problems, that limit your ability to work. If you have cancer, please include the stage and type. List each condition separately. I review those questionnaires when Social Security furnishes them to me, and I'm always amazed at how many people list conditions that have no effect on their ability to work. Examples include high blood pressure, Now, very rarely people can have such severe, uncontrollable high blood pressure it limits their ability to work. In 5 years of doing Social Security disability exams, I've seen one. But in the vast majority of cases, high blood pressure causes no symptoms. It is a medical problem, but it does not affect the ability to work. Same with erectile dysfunction, which I see frequently. Unless you're a male sex worker, erectile dysfunction does not limit your ability to work. Next is the subject of interpreters. I had one patient who spoke no English and I didn't speak their language. If you don't speak English, Social Security will provide an interpreter at no cost to you, but you must request an interpreter before the exam. Likewise, if you're deaf and communicate with sign language, Social Security will provide a sign language interpreter at no cost to the patient, but you must make arrangements before the day of the exam. Next, I'm going to talk about mental health conditions. Many people that I see have mental health conditions that limit their ability to work. I mainly deal with the physical during the consultative exam because I don't have enough time to do a complete physical assessment and a complete psychological assessment. If someone is displaying obvious signs of severe mental illness, which I do see from time to time, I will make a note of that in their record. In most cases, Social Security will obtain information about your mental illness either from your therapist's notes, if you're seeing a psychiatrist, psychologist, or other sort of counselor, and they've sent your records to Social Security, or they will schedule a Social Security psychological evaluation where you'll meet with a psychologist who's employed by Social Security who will go into your mental health problems. Next, we come to testing. Social Security will arrange for patients to get some testing done, again, at Social Security's expense, but not every test. Tests that Social Security may arrange include a psychological assessment for people complaining of mental health limitations, X-rays for people complaining of bone and joint or heart and lung problems, Doppler evaluation of arteries for people with arterial or circulation problems, exercise stress testing or nuclear stress testing for people with heart problems, especially chest pain due to heart trouble, which doctors call angina pectoris, arterial blood gas testing, which is a test of the oxygen and other gases in the blood, generally done for people with breathing difficulties, pulmonary function testing, where a patient breathes into a tube and their various lung capacities and limitations are measured, again done for people with breathing difficulties. Now, here are some of the tests that Social Security will not arrange. They will not arrange for MRI scans. They will not arrange for the person to see a medical specialist. And they will not arrange for blood tests other than the arterial blood gas test or for urine tests either. If you feel that any of those tests are essential to your disability claim, it's up to you to arrange with your doctors to make sure that they're done. Next, I'm going to talk about Social Security mistakes. By and large, Social Security is an amazingly efficient organization given its size, but every once in a while a mistake crops up. This past day when I did the exams, one of the patients complained that Social Security had ordered an x-ray of their low back when their actual problem was their upper back. Here's something to keep in mind. The doctor who does the consultative examination does not order the tests. The tests are ordered by Social Security personnel in their main office based on a review of the medical records. And every once in a while, they make a mistake. When that happens, to correct it, usually I will put a note in my record. In this case, I put down that I recommended the person get an x-ray of their upper back rather than their lower back. And I would recommend that you contact Social Security and discuss the mistake with them. Again, as I've mentioned before, during the history taking, the most common mistake I see people make is using medical jargon or repeating the results of their tests without explaining in their own words why they have difficulty working. Here's a good example. I had a patient who told me the reason they couldn't work was because they had degeneration of the cartilage in their back. Well, that's something a doctor told them, and I had no idea what sort of problems they had. Did their back hurt? Could they not move in a certain way? Did they have pain that spread down their legs? Or did they have no pain at all? There was no way for me to know. Folks, when you describe the problems to the doctor, don't use medical jargon unless you're a doctor or a nurse. Imagine that you're describing your problems to a friend who has no medical knowledge. Describe them in your own words and focus on what your problems make it difficult for you to do. A lot of patients are amazed to discover that simply having pain doesn't make them disabled. A lot of people have pain and go to work. What makes you disabled is if you have severe pain that's brought on by work-related activities. For example, if it hurts your knee so much that you can't walk for more than 5 minutes, then that's a work-related activity which is limited by pain. Again, explain things to the doctor in your own words and be specific. Don't say, I have limited walking because of bone on bone in my knee. Say, if I walk more than 5 minutes, my left knee hurts and throbs so much that I have to sit or lie down for an hour. When it comes to medical conditions that limit the ability to work, I'm always surprised that almost every day that I do disability exams, I discover at least one patient with a medical problem that limits the ability to work that they hadn't even mentioned in their Social Security questionnaire or describing their problems to me. And I saw 2 such patients this past week. One patient had red-green color blindness and had never mentioned that until I got into their eye exam. Red-green color blindness does limit the ability to do some jobs. For example, you can't be a painter. When I was a boy, I had a friend who had red-green color blindness, and he made a very nice model of a battleship, and then he painted it bright green, because to him, green looked like gray. A second patient that I saw had significant arthritis in the fingers of both hands. That limits the ability to lift, carry, and handle objects. But they hadn't mentioned the finger arthritis. They'd complained of other problems, but left the finger arthritis out. Be sure to include every single medical problem, even if it seems minor, that affects your ability to work. Finally, during the exam, understand that we have to verify everything you say. A minority, but a significant minority of patients claiming disability exaggerate and pretend. And therefore, if you say you have a certain problem, I need to check and make sure. I had 2 patients this past week who said that they were blind in one eye and didn't want to check with the eye chart. That's not acceptable. We have to have the person at least try with the eye chart. When I went to medical school, one of my classmates was legally blind. Legally blind does not mean you can't see anything. It means that your best corrected vision in your best eye is 20/200 or worse. My classmate could read and write, although he had to keep his face close to the book, and graduated medical school and became a doctor while legally blind. If you tell me that you have a problem with your foot, I'm going to have you take your shoes and socks off and check the foot to make sure that problem is there. Now, the absolute worst thing you can do during a Social Security disability exam is during the exam exaggerate or pretend. I had a patient who was exaggerating their reflexes when I tapped on their knees. Folks, for complicated technical reasons that I'm not going to go into today, it's impossible to fake your reflexes. I've been testing people's reflexes since 1975. I've checked thousands and thousands of reflexes, and somebody exaggerating or pretending on reflex testing is ridiculously easy to detect. If I have to put down that someone is exaggerating or pretending, that's usually the end of their disability claim. Be honest. Try your best during the exam. Answer questions accurately and honestly. The last thing I recommend is don't hurt yourself during the exam. If the doctor asks you to do something that you know would be very painful, explain that. As I've said before, I'm not there to torture patients. I'm there to see what they can do reasonably comfortably over an 8-hour workday, not what they could do once and then be in so much pain that they'd have to go home and lie down on the couch for the rest of the day. Well, I hope this has been helpful, and as usual, always remember, if it happens, it's possible.